lockdown special. Today we're live from Sydney. As you can see, this is the room out of my hotel window. I've come all the way to Sydney to meet Anthony. Anthony is the owner of a Porsche Cayman. What a great car. Lucky he could spend time with us today. So I'm basically going to have a quick question over to Anthony. Let's bring him into the picture. Say hello to everyone, Anthony. You're all live. Yeah, if
Hello.
you can, there you go. Yeah, just tell us a bit more about your car, which Cayman you've got, any of your previous cars. And if anyone can see this live, you can just sort of say something on the comment stream, just so I know this is live, because I can't quite actually watch this myself live on YouTube. So if someone could just do a quick hello on the channel, that would be great. I'm sure it's all working fine, Anthony. So yeah, over to you, mate.
Sure.
Oh, by the
No
way,
problem.
I've got
Thanks
to
for
say,
having me.
we've really got to give a big thumbs up to Anthony, because it's 8 p.m. in London. It's 3 p.m. in British summertime. It's 5 a.m. in the morning in Sydney. So, Anthony, thank you so much.
It's so early, but I'll do anything and get up early, just if it's discussing cars.
Excellent, excellent.
Thanks for having me on the channel, Max.
No worries. Pleasure to have you.
Awesome. Yes, I have a Porsche Cayman 981. It's a 2013 car. I've owned it for a couple of years now, and as you know, have been tracking it probably 2 to 3 times per year. It's a anthracite brown colour. It's the most unusual colour, and it has PDK. A couple of features I like in the car is I love how the PDK helps you brake at the track, especially when you're coming down from high speed, you're going through a couple of gears. Down changes just really suit the car and really help it out on the track, because it does lack a little bit of power down the straight, but it makes up for it in the corners and the braking.
Gotcha.
So I purchased this car, as I said, roughly a couple of years ago. I own another track car which I had modified previously to owning the Porsche, and that's a Volvo C30 T5. So that's a special German tuner called Heiko. So I've got suspension from them, and I did that up so that I could take that on the track and get some practice. I said to my wife, well, you've just got to try this. It's just so much fun racing around the track. So she came out and did a couple of track days in the car, and we happened to be at a Porsche day one day, and they had Cayman S, the new Cayman S 718 model was there. So we test drove that model. My wife actually did. She test drove it on the track and really liked it. So then we decided, well, maybe we'll look to buying the Porsche Cayman. We started looking, and the price of them was quite expensive. So we thought, oh, let's just have a look at the previous 981 model. And we found one, and once we drove that, the sound of it was just amazing. And so we thought, oh, it just sounds so good. We didn't really care that it might be not quite as quick or whatever.
Do you mind me asking, did you actually test drive a 718 Cayman, or you just ruled it out based on the price?
We just ruled it out based on price, because they were a reasonable price when they first came on the market here, but then I think they became slightly more popular and they sort of went up in price. Really? That's what I noticed. So it was a bit out of our price range. So then, we just settled on the 981, and we haven't looked back.
You use the word settled, mate, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to probably say that. I don't know. I mean, so you track your car, which is quite unique. Some would probably say the 718 with its 4-pot and the turbochargers may be a better track car. But, I mean, from your point of view, I mean, would you prefer the ultimate track machine and maybe less of the 6-cylinder soul, or is that soul quite important to you?
Yeah, we said that soul, that Porsche kind of sound was very important to us, because it makes you feel like you've bought a genuine, the genuine deal. That's how you sort of think of a Porsche. It snarls and it sort of, really gnashes its teeth, and you've really got to rev it and drive it, and that's the kind of feeling we get from the car that we eventually went for.
And that's fascinating. So it's you and your wife both tracking the Cayman?
Yes.
That's fantastic. Give her a big thumbs up from me.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think also, like having now bought the car, the fact that it's naturally aspirated is one thing you appreciate on the track, particularly if you have, like, for example, like a double apex corner. I think it's particularly useful because once you're into that corner, you're often straight lining part of it, and that's where you get such a great response. As soon as you whack the throttle down, it just leaps forward, and you can really pick up speed and make gains in those types of corners.
So was this actually your first Porsche? You mentioned you had a Volvo. I'm not sure if you still have the Volvo, but this is your first Porsche car?
Yeah, this is our Porsche car. We've also got the Volvo as well. So we often take both cars out to the track and have some fun. Yeah, so it's quite interesting comparing a front drive car to a rear drive. Totally different, but they're at the same time they're both a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, given the fact that you actually track your car, something that's quite unique is that you purchased the car, you kind of used it on track, and then you've also sort of done some modifications to the car as well. So could you maybe sort of talk us through when you were driving the car on track prior to doing any modifications, what made you think that, you kind of needed to improve the handling for you on track? Because I know you kind of mentioned a few things to me. I mean, maybe I can put the track circuit up. I'm not sure if you can see us on YouTube itself, Antony, but I'm going to put up the Brabham Thumb racetrack, and maybe you can talk to us a bit more about this actual racetrack and any particular corners that you found needed a bit more improvement. So there's a map on screen. I'm not sure if you're watching this on your other laptop, but
yes, I can see there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, okay. So this is the track that you've basically taken your Cayman on. Is that right?
Just waiting to see it come up. Just one sec.
No worries. It should be there. I mean, I'm not sure. Can you see?
There we go. Yes, okay, that's it. That's perfect. Yeah, it's roughly 4 kilometres long. It's got a very long straight. The main straight is slightly downhill, I think, on the first part. Then it levels out. You then go into turn 1, which I think you can see. Yes, turn 1. Okay. That is, I believe, it's Australia's fastest corner on a racetrack. We roughly go in there 200 plus k's an hour.
Wow,
into that corner. Yeah, and then you sort of ease off the throttle. You might do a light brake just before it, just to level the car. But the amount of lateral force you get in that turn's just incredible.
Just to quickly answer one of the questions, this is Sydney Motorsport Park. It's a racetrack in Sydney. Is that right, Antony?
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
Yep, and I believe it's a Grand Prix circuit, so they do race Formula cars around there. My wife's uncle, he races historic Formula Ones around that track, so yeah, it's quite amazing.
Oh wow!
Like the Brabhams and those types, like going back a few years. Yeah, historic Formula One racing.
So I mean, I've made the map a bit bigger, so I think hopefully the viewers can see the T1, T2, T3 for the different turns. So I mean, when you kind of mentioned you were doing about 200 kilometres coming into turn 1, you kind of mentioned that there was a few areas where you thought the handling could be improved, and this is why you kind of came onto your modifications. I mean, we'll come up on each one in turn, but which of these turns, I'll leave you to it.
So what I noticed was, you come through turn 1, everything's quite good there. You're getting, like on the GoPro, you're getting 1.1 plus maybe G's through there. You're doing roughly 160 when you hit the apex of the corner. And then you sort of accelerate again and bring the speed back up coming into turn 2, which is the hairpin sort of double apex type turn. And, you might get back up to 180 prior to that turn before you hit the braking zone. Then it's a real heavy, fast braking there. So you go through a couple of gears, down changes. What I noticed there was under that real fast braking was a little bit of what they call rear wheel wobble comes in. You can just feel it in the car. So what it is the front of the car, all the weight gets transferred to the front once you brake. And I think it lifts up the rear of the car, which alters the geometry. So you just feel a little bit of a shake or a wobble in the rear of the car. It doesn't affect you, like it's absolutely fine. But I think that's just one thing that prompted me to look to Porsche and see if I could fit or some way of improving it. And I came up with fitting their X73 rear bar.
Okay, right. So while you look at that, let me just quickly take the picture off track and get that modification on track. So on screen, right now, on screen, I've basically got the chassis brace that you sent us. So
yes,
yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure if you can see it, but sort of talk us through that.
Yeah, that chassis brace is an extra tie down I put as well as adding the rear bar. So it's got a 9 pound, I think it's a solid bar, my Porsche mechanic said, and it provides like about 40% extra stiffness compared to the normal stock bar that it had fitted, because I've only got standard suspension. Yeah, that's it. The Renline chassis brace, that braces the two parts of that whole brace runs an entire length of the car, I think, from the rear towards the front. Okay. And it's bolted down those rails. So you can see the little Renline. Those red items are tie downs for your wheel if you happen to put the car on a trailer. Okay. You can use straps to tie it down, but the Renline fits between the two. And what that does is it actually moves. So I think it holds the geometry in place. So as you're cornering, and especially if you've got like wider tyres, you're developing a fair bit of lateral sort of G-force, then it holds the geometry of the suspension better in place.
So did that come in one package? Because I can see that there's a big metal triangular plate pretty much under the sort of the sump of the engine. And then you've got the brace bar along the side. So did that come in one package, or are they sort of two separate items?
Yeah, so there's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 3 items. The 2 red sort of brackets, and then they get bolted through the lower chassis brace, or whatever you call it. And then you just then separately you can screw in the Renline brace to those across there. And it has, like, the ends of it move. So I guess, a car flexes, so it has to have some movement in it. So the 2 ends are kind of like round. They look a bit round. So often you'll stop the car, look underneath, and you'll see that it's shifted position slightly on the ends.
I don't know too much about racing, to be fair, but I know when I got my wheel alignment done, that as the weight of the car shifts forward under heavy braking, obviously that can change, like, the caster or the camber of the rear wheel. So would you almost say with this modification, you can put the power down quicker out of the corner because there's kind of more weight at the back of the car and the wheels are in contact a bit more?
Yes, that's exactly. And that's the feeling you kind of get having fitted those things. It feels like the rear of the car is firmly planted and always, tied down to the road under the seat of your pants. That's what it feels like. Wow. So it's really quite a noticeable change with both those items. I didn't actually fit the front the front bar either, because that was actually a fair bit of work, and it results in removing that entire subframe section under the car to bring it in from the front. So I thought that was too much work, so I only fitted the rear bar, but ideally you'd probably fit the front bar from the X73 package as well.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, if you want a lowered car, then probably fit the entire X73 Porsche package. I mean, that's probably ideal, but I just still want to be able to take my car shopping, go over speed bumps and things like that.
So just quickly for my benefit, when we saw the modifications on the back of the car to strengthen up the chassis, which bit was the Porsche the Porsche supplied part? Because there was a Renline brace, so that's obviously not a Porsche product. But is that big kind of metal plate underneath the car, is that a Porsche product?
Yeah, I think that's just part of that subframe. But you can see just above the Renline brace, there's like a gap in there, and you can see the actual black bar sitting underneath that. So it just sort of runs underneath behind there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just put that back on screen, yeah. Okay. I mean, there was one good question we just actually got from Andy. So, and we kind of touched upon this just off this call, and that was around the whole oil starvation. So, you know what, maybe we can talk about this when we come onto the tyres. So could you sort of tell us
Yes,
which tyres you're running, and then, you know, the whole thing around certain tyres which you're not kind of willing to run?
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, it's just come up on screen now. Sorry. So you can see that, yeah, that black bar in the little hole just above the Ren line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the new rear bar there going underneath. It's just that you can't see it on either end.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just going back to the tires. I read in the Porsche manual that you can't fit slick tires to the 981. So it says you mustn't do that because of the oil starvation issue. So that's why when I fitted new tires, I thought I'll just only go up one size, like one size wider than standard, just so you don't generate, really high G's in a corner. So it sort of increased the feeling there
I've just
quite
put
a
up
bit.
a picture of the side of your car so people can see these Apex wheels that you've got. And as you say, you've gone a bit wider on the rubbers. Is that on the front and the
Yeah.
back, or just maybe on the back?
Yeah, both on the front and the rear, one side, one plus size. Yeah, so 245 front and 275 rear.
Gotcha. I do love those wheels. Very nice.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think because also I've changed tyres from Pirelli to Michelin, probably feeling a little bit of extra grip there, I'd say as well.
Yeah.
That's what I'm noticing.
So I think to answer your little question, Andy, is that you know, Antony could put some better, you know, Cup 2 tyres on, but I think because of that oil starvation issue, where with the extra grip, you're going to be cornering with higher Gs, and then obviously I think without any baffles and the sump, that oil is going to be sloshing left and right and could get a bit of starvation. So we're just playing it safe, aren't you?
Yes, just playing it safe.
Yeah.
And I believe some people, even with the 987 model, they do fit baffles on the bottom of the engine. Yeah, when they track the car. So that's sometimes that's the first thing they do. Not sure about 981s, whether they're any different.
Yeah.
Not sure. There is a Apex Wheels has a 718 Cayman, which possibly is from Apex, or it's one of the people that work there, I think.
Okay.
And that you can actually find that on Google online, and they've got quite a similar setup. And it didn't seem to mention that they've fitted a baffle or anything to that car. And that's the 718.
Gotcha. Are they 18-inch wheels, by the way?
Yeah, those are. I actually dropped down a size. I found out that, like for example, with a 718, you can fit 20-inch, 19-inch, or 18-inch. And I went and spoke to Porsche. I said, look, I'm thinking of getting 20-inch. And they said, well, hang on a second. Just look at the GT4 Club Sport. It runs 18-inch. You're probably likely to get more grip in more situations if you drop down to an 18-inch. So that's what they told me. And so far, I'm probably believing what they said.
Wow.
Based on the testing that I've done so far, just around the street, it seems grippier, moving down to an 18-inch, which is not what I expected.
Yeah. I mean, what's the weather like there at the moment? Are you getting enough heat into the tyres, or even on like normal road use?
Yeah, well, that's right. Like with the Michelin tyre, one thing is they get the heat into them a bit quicker, I think, than the Pirelli. With the Pirellis, you've got to run, at least one lap before they get the heat into them, and they start to develop that, stickiness that you really need.
Yeah.
So that they sort of heat up a bit slower, but then they reach a really good zone where they do grip really well, the Pirellis. Wow. But definitely the Michelin, I think they are a bit grippier a bit sooner.
Wow. Okay. I'm just going to put up a picture of your front control arm, because I'm not that kind of clued up enough to actually know what racing benefits you get from this. So I'll kind of put that picture up. But it looks like it takes a while for this to actually come up on live. But essentially, this is the Elephant Racing control arm. And what was the sort of motivation behind getting this item fitted on your car?
Yes, well, I mentioned before about the 718 Cayman that's been modified. I think that its own, one of the owners, one of the people that work at Apex Wheels, and they track all their cars there. So I was kind of that's one of the modifications they had done to that car. So I thought that might be a really good idea. And when I was purchasing the Apex Wheels, if you go for their option number 2, so if you go for option number 1, you don't have to change your camber settings at all. It's just a direct bolt on, and you can drive, at your leisure down the street and not have to worry about, clearing the guards at the top. But with option 2 and option 3, I went for option 2. That's more a street/track type option. So it involves putting a bit more negative camber there, so you can actually make the tyre clear underneath the guard at the top. So that's why I decided, well, there's a number of ways you can add camber. You can do top camber plates, but Porsche already kind of had those fit. It's already adjustable at the top on a Porsche Cayman 981. So you can actually, I've had Porsche adjust the camber and make it more aggressive for track days, which really works well. Putting a bit of extra front camber in there, it gives you better turn-in.
Is that something that you do yourself? If you had a trolley jack and just lifted up the front wheel, are you comfortable doing that yourself?
No, I wouldn't do it yourself. The elephant racing control arm is self-adjustable. However, you've got to have an alignment machine, so you really need to go to a specialist alignment shop once you've had it fitted, because you need to adjust the caster back to the original settings that you had beforehand before fitting the control arm. So you really need to get your alignment readings before you fit it, and then have them adjust the caster back to the original setting once it's actually fitted. Yeah. So they make it adjustable, I think, halfway along the control arm. You can see there's like a dial there with degrees on it, and you adjust it with Allen keys. Okay. So it's all made to be fully adjustable, so that I think race cars can adjust it at the track.
Gotcha. One thing that we didn't quite mention is that obviously, because you track your car, yours is actually the PDK, which I guess for you was definitely a choice you made. It wasn't the fact that you couldn't get a manual. You definitely wanted the PDK, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing when I test drove the car was, and I didn't actually realise this at the time, but when you push the sports button mode in the PDK, and you're coming up to a corner and you hit the brake pedal, if you only apply less than 50% pedal pressure, then the PDK doesn't down change for you. But if you exceed 50%, it then down changes the gears, because it knows that you want extra engine braking. So that's one thing I didn't actually realise at the time. And we took this car out test driving. I thought, what's that? What's it doing? I thought, gee, that sounds really good. Wow. And but I didn't find out later until reading the car manual what it was actually up to.
Does it actually say that 50% braking? Even I didn't know that, to be honest.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's quite incredible. So if you're just sort of cruising around gently in the sports mode, then it won't do that real sort of crack of a down change. Yeah, it's a lot more gentle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And let's put your steering wheel up. So in terms of do you actually do any manual shifting yourself, or do you actually let the gearbox take control?
Well, that's an interesting, lately, the last track day I did was with Porsche, Sydney South, and they had a massive track day. We had something like 80 Porsches out at Sydney Motorsport Park, and they had GT2 RS race cars, GT4 Club Sports. They had, every range of Porsche there, and it was so good to see, how the car was going compared to all those cars. And sorry, just a moment, I just need a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. What you're saying, Max?
Basically, sort of saying. So obviously you've got the PDK car. You've actually got the button selectors to actually change gear, and I guess you've got flappy paddles behind that. But do you just generally leave the car in automatic and in sport mode, and let the actual computer do all the gear shifts for you?
Yes. Well, the car manual recommends doing that, just leaving it in D, pushing the sports button, and just let the PDK do its thing. Okay. And it always seems to be in the right gear. It does the right thing in every situation, every corner, which is just fantastic. But I was saying, I think last track day I went with Porsche, I started fiddling with the gear shift in the middle, because you can change it there, up and down, or you can use behind the steering wheel to down change, or in front of the steering wheel to up change. So I started sort of getting the instructor saying, can you help me out here? And I want to start learning to do it myself, because you feel like you have a bit more control. So the PDK is so good that it will actually let you down change as well, and not up change. You can just down change if you like, which is just absolutely fantastic. So you can pick your braking point and then hit the down change behind the steering wheel, and it'll do it exactly as you want.
Excellent.
So
there's one question I had. You kind of mentioned there were 80 other cars, on on that event at the same time. How do you find your Cayman 981 base kind of compared to the other cars, say maybe like the 911s, which are heavier and more power? I know obviously there's driver skill involved here, but did you notice anything around which cars generally could keep more speed through the corners, and did some cars kind of blast past you on the straights, but then you found later on you caught them up?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I kind of don't like to single out models, but definitely the Cayman on that track is, it's quite up the Porsche range in terms of what it can keep up with. That's what I noticed. Okay. Particularly the handling and braking. Definitely some 911 models I was following, and it's definitely capable of keeping up with them. It just won't match them on the straight, though.
Yeah.
However, lap time wise, it's actually very similar. So it was quite eye opening.
We just got a question that. Oh, sorry, go on. A question just came in from someone sort of saying, you might have less connection with the car because it's PDK, and there's always this thing around the manual is the purest thing, but if you're on track, and you care about lap times, which I'm guessing you do, then is the PDK allows you to basically focus on the driving, the braking points, and actually get the best lap time. So I mean, what's your take on people that might say, why don't you have a manual for track use?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love manual car. One of my previous cars I owned was a manual. It was an E36 AC Schnitzer BMW. So I absolutely get it about the manual control, the down changing, blipping the throttle, all that type of thing. And, recently I saw Mark Webber. He was taking the new GT4 around with a manual, and he was just amazing. Just the feet control he's got and the way he down changes. And I mean, like I totally get it. Like you said, the PDK, I think, takes some of the work away, and it does a really perfect job of it, which I really like.
All the track days I've done have been on an automatic car, and that was before I got my Cayman. And one thing I did like is that because you're kind of wearing I had like a closed helmet, I couldn't actually see my left hand on the gear stick anyway. And I just the fact that I could just use the flappy pedals. I think I mentioned this before in another videos. I was there on a track event where someone got into the heat at the moment, and they downshifted into the wrong gear and over revved their engine, and it just destroyed their car. So
yes, can be dangerous. You've got to be perfectly on it, don't you? The revs and wow. That's I guess that's a thing that could actually happen. But there's definitely something about a manual. It just gives you that bit more control, and I really love manual cars. It's kind of a shame I don't actually have a manual car anymore.
Do you still have the Volvo, by the way?
Still got the Volvo. It's actually automatic, funnily enough, but it has a nice third gear in it, and because you've got turbo and it's very torquey, it's good out down the track. I could just leave it in a third gear and it handles most of the corners.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of relaxing.
One question that just came into my mind now, and be honest here, Anthony, who gets the better lap times, you or your wife, in the Cayman?
In the Cayman, we don't normally compare lap times. it's probably me. I mean, she saw a video of me driving. She said, "Oh, you're better than me." But look, hats off to my wife. She's done such a great job. Yeah. Turn one, I actually think she does a better job than I do.
Yeah. No, the reason I say that is I know Klaus is a guy from Germany, and his wife drives his kind of Porsche cars as well. And it tends to be that, so his wife will generally do higher speeds than him because, it depends on your kind of fear factor or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's interesting. My wife, on a track day, she had a rally driver instructor, and she went through that turn one at Sydney Motorsport Park, and he got her to, well, normally like I'd come in, roughly 200 and then sort of ease off the gas, but she sort of came in at a lower speed, but then he had her keeping the throttle down, and it just made it through just beautifully, like around 170 k's, which is actually faster than I reached when I reached the apex point. So it's kind of, I don't know, I think there's many ways you can take the turn.
What do the tyres look like at the end of the day? I mean, do you generally go through a set of tyres on one track outing, or would they last a few more than that?
Oh gosh, no! Like those Pirellis I've had are still good. We've probably done 5 track days on them.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're amazing. So I've got them on the 19-inch Cayman S wheels, and they've still got enough tread probably there to do even another session. Wow. So they don't really wear that much. The Pirellis, especially the edges, are quite good on those tyres. Right, cool. My little Volvo, I've got actual Michelins on those, and they've been similarly quite good as well. Wear-wise, that's a Pilot Super Sport.
Wow, awesome. So now's the time. We're about halfway into this video, so now's the time. If you've got questions for Antony, get busy on your keyboards. Get the questions coming in. Now we'll keep talking, but I can obviously see some questions are coming in. And it's not every day that we get a Cayman owner that seems to track their car and sort of you seem to be quite sort of at one with your car in terms of understanding, like when you kind of brake and go through the corners and how the whole car is shifting around you. So that's kind of quite unique, because I've never tracked my Cayman. I'm not sure I will. Actually, another question just came to my mind. Do you get quite a lot of stone chips and sort of front bumper road rash by tracking your car?
No, I don't actually. I check for that every time, and so far I haven't had any marks at all on the front of the car. There's just a few little marks on the clear coat, just behind the rear wheels, because you get lumps of rubber and various bits and pieces sort of get picked up by the wheels because the tyres are so hot. And some days it's you're out there and it's 35 degrees or 40 degrees Celsius on the track, so your tyres will pick up a lot of gunk, and I think they get thrown out behind the wheel. Okay. So you sort of notice up underneath there, but you can't really see it if you're just walking around the car.
Wow. Okay.
But otherwise, no, it's
we've got
pretty
the questions
good.
Sort of coming in now. So basically, I don't know if it popped up on your screen, but it's the one here from Wazzy Machine. He's basically going, "I have no doubt that the base Cayman is brilliant on track. How do you feel about it as a street car? And do you ever want the extra power of the S for street use?"
That's a good question. I would say I don't really need any more power than what it's got. Recently I did modify the exhaust tips on the car and put a couple of filters in there, so that's actually given it a bit of extra low down torque. So with the PDK you can kind of like go through the gears if you manually shift it around the street, perhaps change around 3,500, 4,000. You don't really need to rev it right out, and it still makes quite decent progress. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think...
maybe before that you used to have to rev it out more. So yeah, possibly you might, if you had just the standard car, you may want a bit of extra power.
Yeah. Okay. So and 2 questions from the same guy. What's the maximum speed limit in Australia? Say on the freeways, and are you aware of any exclusive options that Australia gets on their cars?
The maximum speed limit's 110 kilometres an hour, although I believe you can go to the Northern Territory where I think you can do at least 130 or maybe a bit faster. Yeah, but that's such a long way away. I don't think I'll ever venture up the north that far. Yeah. So what was the other part of the question?
I guess you'd need to know if you were buying the cars new, but it's like, do you know if Australia's got any special options available that we don't get in other countries? But it's a tough one to answer because you'd need to know what other countries get.
Yeah, not particularly. Yeah, I don't know that aspect because I haven't actually bought like a brand new Porsche, from new or configured it. Yeah. So yeah, not really sure. Sorry.
That's all right. And we've got one about what's the? I'm guessing actually, do you insure your car when you take it on track? And if you do, is it expensive?
No, I don't know. We don't. I don't believe it's insurable on the track that I go to. So yeah, and I think a lot of my mates that take their cars also don't insure them. So we tend to do our track days that we do tend to have a fair amount of rules regarding overtaking.
Okay.
Just to make it safer. And they also limit the number of cars per session.
That's really important. Do you mind me asking how many cars were on track at the same time? Because I really hate a busy circuit.
Yeah, I'd say on that circuit, which is roughly, I think, it's roughly, just under 2 minutes a lap. You probably look about 15 to 20 cars out there at a time. But if you do a later session in the day, usually a few people have gone home, so you can often get a lot less cars than that.
Okay, gotcha. So there we go. Yes, I mean I know normally when I do this is my first one-on-one interview, so thank you very much for this. I think this is an awesome way to basically get a bit more kind of inside your head, and the fact that you track your car. We got some more cables coming. What's this? 65 mile third gear. Oh, it's Julian just talking about some gears and stuff. Actually, just out of interest, when you're doing the high speeds on track, are you going through the full range of gears, like all through to 6th gear, or what would be your highest gear that you get up to?
I'd say it's at least fourth.
Okay.
4th gear. I know once you hit once you get over 200, it changes up to a higher gear, and you stay in that till you reach your braking point. But I'm not sure what exact number of gears that is on the Cayman. It's probably at least 4, maybe 5 that it gets to. But it does get to a gear, and you go, oh, great, this is fantastic. It's starting to go quicker, and then all of a sudden you've got to brake.
Yeah. Do you know what time of the year do you do your track days? So would you have normally done one by now? Because I just had it to the website said obviously the track's closed due to this virus stuff. So when do you reckon you're going to book in your next sort of track outing?
Well, I've got a couple of track days booked, one for July and one for August. But whether they come through, it's really difficult to know. Yeah. They were running them in the early sort of days. They were running them out there, but then they had to stop them because of the lockdown.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, great question just came in from someone. Have you had anything break with all the track use? Because obviously, it can be quite heavy on things like your consumables like brake pads and discs. Have you had anything actually sort of go on you?
No, I haven't. The front pads, my Porsche mechanic, he fitted some more track orientated pads, and we just put in just a high temp fluid as well. But I've never had any issues with brakes. Yeah. They can handle, 5-20-minute sessions all day, and you just drive it home and the pedal feels the same, which is astounding. Because I've had
what they say about the Porsche cars is that they're not just made to look pretty; they actually do handle well on track, and that they keep going. Yeah,
absolutely. And so so I've got a little more brake feel there with the changed pad. Which helps when you reach those high speed braking and you really want to pull up quick. The rear pads are just the standard Porsche ones.
Okay.
So that's all good. But I haven't had anything else break. The only trouble my wife's had is when we were out it was like about a 35 degrees Celsius day at least, and the track temps were enormous. And like I was saying before, where you pick up the rubber onto the tyres. So we've had some issues where you pick up so much rubber that you start to feel an imbalance in the steering. Yeah, or it's or on the rear, you sort of lumps of rubber hit under the car, and you think you've broken something. Wow. So you hear these like loud banging sounds and stuff like that. So she's had to come in before, after a few sessions, and I've had a look at it and gone, oh yeah, the rubber's, just stuck all over the tyres.
We're actually talking like chunks of rubber like the size of a tiny penny or something, like,
Yeah, absolutely. And it can get so hot that it actually forms like all the way around the wheel of the tyre, like, and it might be a few mils thick, so it can actually throw out your wheel balance.
Wow.
And so one day she came and go, oh, geez. So I came up with an idea. While the tyre was like still super hot, I took this sort of car up and just did what do you call it, like a donut or a, when you, so I just put it in first gear and just spun the rear tyres. Excellent. And you can just hear bang, 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 and they're all the stuff's just coming off. And then it kind of fixed the car, and she went back out again.
You gotta let me know where you can go in Sydney to do this, because like around where I live, there's nowhere that I could do a donut without getting the police called up on me or something.
Yeah, I think it happens here too. In fact, I saw in the news last night some people got into big trouble. They're doing that type of thing. Okay. The police had a big crackdown, and they shouldn't be doing those sorts of things in lockdown.
Yeah.
I guess they're all going crazy though.
Oh yeah, just to clarify for the viewers out there, I'm not really in Sydney. I had a couple of hours to spare before setting up for Antony, so I managed to sort of play around with the ability to sort of swap my background in and out. So what's the other one we can do? That's a 918 sort of spider in the background. So yeah, I didn't really fly to Sydney. There's no need to sort of call up the hounds on me and saying I'm doing non-essential travel. Although, to be fair, Antony, coming to Sydney to meet you and see your Cayman, that's pretty essential travel, if you ask me.
That'd be amazing to see you, Max.
Yeah.
I wish I could travel to the UK. Yeah, that'd be so cool. I used to live there, actually.
Oh, really? You used to live there?
Yeah. I used to live in Kent for a couple of years, and I worked in London, for a couple of years when I was younger.
Wow.
That was amazing.
I think there was someone here on Kent earlier on. I can't remember if someone mentioned. Oh no, that was County Durham. My mistake. That wasn't Kent. There you go. Yeah. Well, listen. Sure. Thank you very much for sharing time with us. I mean, if there's anything else you want to sort of say to the viewers, if any of the viewers out there have got any questions for Antony, go for it. I mean, I'm sure you can keep an eye on the comment thread as this sort of video goes. And yeah, I mean, if you've got anything else to sort of say to anyone, I think we've just got a few thumbs up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, would the audience be interested in me talking through the wheel alignment settings that I'm running on the car now with the new wheels?
Well, I tell you what, I would be interested, and this is my channel, so yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So basically, the car before, I had Porsche do an aggressive wheel alignment, so I was running roughly about negative 1.2 degrees camber, and then afterwards I'm now running minus 2 degrees. Now that resulted in setting the front caster, so the front caster only is set to 6 degrees 30 before and after, so that's what it was before and that's what it was after. The front toe, this is a real interesting one. The front toe before I had set as 1.5 millimeters in. So what that means is the two tyres point inwards rather than outwards. So you've got toe out, toe in. So I had them set to afterwards 0. So it's not in but not out. So it's straight ahead. Okay. Now apparently that gives you a freer sort of top speed, or a little bit more top speed, because the wheels aren't fighting each other. Okay. I think it also provides a lighter feel when you turn in, to the apex. And these are some of the things I'm noticing, having done the change. Yeah, so the rear setup, so that was the front setup. The rear setup just remained as is, roughly negative 1.3 to 1.15, same before and after, and the rear toe is set as 1 millimeter toe in, so you got a little bit of toe in on the rear, and zero toe on the front.
Wow.
So it's quite an interesting setup. And
yeah, I mean, I was just wondering because I remember when I had my wheel alignment done last time. I think he generally said what they do is because you're never driving down the middle of the road. You're either on the left or the right, depending on which country you're in. Then they do something to the outermost wheel in whichever country that is, because obviously it's going to be on the curvier bit of the road where it drains out, whereas the road the tire closer to the middle. So I know that you could almost argue the default setup for street use doesn't work on track, because on track generally it's, you don't get all that big camber, do you?
No, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because you get those camber changes, don't you, on the road where it sort of drops off and that.
Yeah.
And depending on the track, it's generally flatter and smoother. You might get one or two with a bit of off camber, but that's right.
Actually, that's something I noticed. I think I had on my Cayman, it had some really old Michelin cups. No, they weren't even cut. They were normal Michelin tyres when I bought the car. I put the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, brand new rubber. And one thing I kind of felt was that, I think they call it tram lining. It kind of felt like the tyres just wanted to keep going in that direction, you know, like I don't know if and that wasn't related to steering geometry. That was just down to the tyre. So I wonder if this kind of, have you ever noticed anything when you sort of change new tyres, or you get this feeling that the tyres just want to keep going in a certain direction?
Yeah, well, I did notice that actually with my old BMW I used to own before I fitted the AC Schnitzer suspension. I had that a little bit of tram lining, but then once I fitted the suspension, and they did the alignment, it disappeared totally.
Oh, wow.
That's right. And you could actually drive across tram tracks or anything, and it just wouldn't matter.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think you're right. It's alignment and suspension.
I mean, there's a good kind of a question on track stuff, but before we go there, someone on this channel was born in Kent, so it's entirely up to you. But do you want to maybe let this guy know whereabouts in Kent you were working?
Yeah, well, we lived in Sevenoaks for a couple of years, and I was working at AIG at Croydon.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so it's insurance.
Yeah, so that answers your question, Magic Ayrton Forever, because he said he was born there. Now, another really great question we got was from Robert, and he was talking about, and it's a brilliant question, I'm not even sure why I didn't remember this one, tyre inflation. What do you do to your tyre pressures before you go back?
Yeah.
Like, do you lower them?
That's very interesting. Again, here I asked Porsche what should I do, because and they said to me, well, start off with a pressure around 33, and see how that goes. Don't let it go over roughly 36. Now that was when I was running the 19s with the Pirellis. On these 18s, I've still got about 32, 33 in them at the moment, and that seems to feel pretty good. But I don't really know till I go to the track and start, taking the tyre temperatures and checking the pressures across the wheels, because it can vary depending on the track.
I think there's this really cool Michelin video they did where I think they've put tyre valves in the actual tyres, and you can read it via an app. So when you're out on track, it will actually tell you the real-time pressure readings, and basically, like,
that's amazing.
If you've got a lot of right-hand corners on track, your inner tyres are going to get hotter than the outer tyres. So the actual pressure should be different to get even pressure on your tyres.
Even balance across the front, or the rear. Yeah, that's right. Wow, that's fascinating. So is that new technology?
I think if you go, I saw it on YouTube. If you sort of do something like Michelin tyre, I can't remember what it was now, but it was fascinating that you could read this stuff in real time. A few other sort of questions. Wheel settings I think we've covered. We've got one from 1530 Swimmer. Did you ever consider a 911? Go on.
Wow, that's an interesting question again. To be honest, I haven't actually yet been in a 911. Years ago, my Porsche mechanic took me, because my Porsche mechanic actually, he lived next door to my mum's place, and that's how I came to have him service now my Cayman. So I've known him for about 30, 40 years. And he once took me in a 911. It was a convertible, and it was, I think, the first of the Tiptronic models. And it was like very quick. I think it was roughly, 0 to 100 around 5 seconds. That type of performance. So I've been in convertible 911, but otherwise, I haven't. I've never actually really been in like a GT3 RS or something like that. But I'm sure that if I experienced a car like that, I'd probably go, wow.
The thing is, I can't wait to take my Cayman on track, because the reason that it really appeals to me is that I've had a 500 brake horsepower Jag on track. And with that much power, it's literally blast down the straights, heavy on the brakes, do the corner, and then flat out the other way. It's almost like what you were mentioning, like when your wife was driving the Cayman on track. I actually want to try and do. It's less about that aggressive power delivery on the straights, but I want to get into the handling of the car and do the power through the corners. And this is where I think I'd rather have a Cayman, to be fair, because I mean, let's be honest, my driving ability is so poor on track that I've got a long way to go before I think the car is not good enough for me on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The handling is just the totally the best aspect about the Cayman. That's what my Porsche mechanic said. He goes, you're going to love the handling of the Cayman out on the track. It's not all about power. Essentially, that's what he said to me, and I think he's right. Having gone down the track now a couple of years and experienced the car, I think he's actually right. It's more about the handling and the braking.
And I'm guessing,
and that's where there's
sorry.
Yeah, and that's where there's a lot of time to be made up on a track.
Yeah. Is your Volvo front engine, by the way?
Yeah, it's front engine, front-wheel drive.
If you were blindfolded, I mean, do you feel the fact that the Cayman just balances so well because it's mid-engine? Do you really feel that on track?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the little Volvo, it's nicely balanced too from its suspension tune, and the front wheels will tend to sort of pull you through the corner more, and you get a little bit of understeer, a bit more understeer in the Volvo, so you've got to work the wheel a bit more towards the apex, whereas the Cayman sort of turns more directly towards the apex. But yeah, it's still fun. A front drive, because as I said, like, it pulls you through the corner rather than pushing you. Because that's one aspect of the Cayman is I like to feel like the car's really planted, and like before I modified the car, you could feel the limit of grip approaching on the rear. So the front would tend to grip more than the rear. So the rear would be the first thing to go, in a corner. Which is fine because you've got traction control there, and the Porsche just manages it so well. But what I've done to the car now, it seems to be more even split between front to rear. So you sort of notice when you turn into the corner that the front's gripping and the rear's gripping, and I'm no longer feeling that sort of limit being approached in the corner, which is kind of actually where I want to take the car.
Gotcha.
I want it to feel sort of very sort of predictable, and I'm not one to be sliding the rear out and doing drifting and all that sort of stuff. I just like it to feel nice and safe. Actually, my little Volvo's got that feeling. If you push it too far, it'll four-wheel drift. So it'll four-wheel drift but still follow the racing line, which is kind of good as well.
Wow.
So I've sort of got the Cayman sort of heading like to that kind of safe feeling, easy turn in, safe feel. And so that's one of the other advantages of the turn in and getting a bit more camber up front and a bit more grip is you can sort of, what they say is you can actually brake a little later and a little deeper, and you'll still be able to reach to the apex.
Wow.
So you can sort of dispatch with the corner a bit quicker. And make up a little bit of time there.
You know what? I'm going to quickly put up a picture of your car, because while I remember it, these Apex wheels you've got fitted, I meant to ask you. So I was looking at the rear and the fronts, and I kind of get the impression that the rear tyres sort of they bulge in a bit more than the front. So are they actually the same sort of? I know they're the same. Well, obviously you went bigger on the widths, but are they actually slightly different? Does one sort of bulge in a bit more?
Yeah, I think that comes from them wide. Like once you go wider on the rim, it produces more concavity on the wheels.
Okay.
So because the center bore of the wheel is sort of more recessed in, like in towards the centre of the wheel, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So because the front rim's an 8.5-inch rim, whereas the rear's I think is a 10, you actually get more concavity on the rear based on the offsets that have set. And that's the other thing I should mention is about those wheels is because it's a track wheel, they make the centre bore of the wheel a little stronger and they reduce the weight out on the spokes. So it's all about rotational, physics.
Yeah.
Rotational.
I do love those wheels. I've never seen them wheels before. I do love them. Yeah,
so you get like a more solid centre is going to mean the wheel rotates smoother and is easier for the engine to, especially if it's lighter, it's easier for the engine to push.
But we've just got Stephen saying how great that colour is. Could you just give us the name of that colour once before? Because I haven't seen that colour in person myself.
Anthracite brown. That's the colour, yeah.
It's
the wheels are anthracite as well. It's a similar colour.
Wow. I mean, it doesn't look very brown to me. It's almost I mean, in person, I mean, I don't know, what's the closest kind of material colour you could sort of, does it actually look that brown, or is it more of a dark black?
It looks blacky, I must say. Like, it gets the blacky colour comes into it.
Okay.
So often you think, oh, is that car black? Or it just depends on the light.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So in the sunlight, I suppose it looks a bit different. But then if you get any sort of shadows or, then it can tend to look black.
Yeah, well, that is a lovely
towards the blacky.
Yeah, I'm expecting. We've almost gone over double hour. Not that we had a time limit, but we've almost hit the hour mark. So that's fantastic. It's 6 a.m. for you, so it's coming up to morning time. So there you go.
Yeah, it's just starting. The sun's starting to come up soon, I think. So it'll. Yeah.
I mean, I'm no longer in Sydney. I'm in the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart, so you can see all the cars behind me. After this video, I'm going to pick one of the cars in the background and take one out for a test drive, I think. There you go. Well, I think we've pretty much done with the questions. I can see, I know a couple of guys have been going for it, like Julian and Robert. I'll have to catch up on the comments what you two guys have been going on about. But listen, I'm sure Antony will keep an eye on this video. Put any other comments you've got for Antony with all his track experience. I'm sure we could answer some great questions you've got. Antony, thank you so much for sharing out your morning with us. Sorry for making you get up so early, because when I came up with these lockdown specials, I thought, let me try and pick a time that's... Normally I do these in the afternoon for me, because that's preferable. But I thought, let me get a time slot that kind of gets the broadest range of people in. But I wasn't actually thinking Australia. So thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to come on the channel, Max, and thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah.
And it's been great chatting with you and the audience. You're fantastic.
Brilliant. And once again, if you want to feature your car on this channel, just send me an email at maxrevscars@gmail.com. We can't get out. I mean, to be fair, I'm going a little bit sort of crazy, in this whole lockdown thing. It's a nice way for us to get together, meet each other, and share our Cayman stories. So keep enjoying life and cars to the max. Stay safe. And Antony, thank you very much again for joining us.
Cheers.
Okay, see you guys, everyone.